Close your eyes and imagine this. You're standing at the edge of Machu Picchu, watching the sunrise over ancient stone ruins. A fellow traveler from Germany asks you about your journey. Could you tell them about your adventure in English? Today, we're exploring the language of travel, from booking flights to sharing incredible cultural experiences. Welcome to Artificial Fluency Podcast. I'm Emma, your English learning companion, and this episode is specially designed for intermediate English learners at B1 and B2 levels. Travel opens doors to new cultures, creates unforgettable memories, and gives us countless stories to share. But more importantly for us as English learners, travel provides the perfect context to practice real-world communication skills. Today's journey will take us through 4 fascinating destinations in the English language. First, we'll master essential travel vocabulary and expressions you need for any adventure. Then, we'll explore cultural differences and how to discuss them respectfully. Next, we'll dive into travel experiences, both amazing and challenging, and learn how to tell compelling stories. Finally, we'll practice real conversations you might have while traveling. By the end of our hour together, you'll have learned over 40 travel-related vocabulary words, mastered several important grammar structures, and gained the confidence to discuss travel and culture with anyone, anywhere in the world. Pack your bags, grab your passport, and let's embark on this English learning adventure. Every great journey begins with planning, and every great English conversation about travel begins with the right vocabulary. Let's start building your travel language toolkit. Core travel planning vocabulary. Destination. Itinerary. Accommodation. Budget. Backpacking. Transportation vocabulary. Let's explore different ways to get around. Domestic flight. International flight. Layover. Direct flight. Road trip. Public transportation. Here's a personal story to illustrate these words. Last summer, I planned an incredible itinerary for my European adventure. My destination was originally just Paris, but I decided to expand my budget to include a road trip through 3 countries. I found affordable accommodation through a backpacking website and took several domestic flights between cities. Grammar focus. Future forms for travel plans. When discussing travel plans, we use several future forms. Going to for definite plans. I'm going to visit Japan next spring. We're going to stay in a traditional ryokan. Present continuous for scheduled arrangements. I'm flying to Barcelona on Friday. We're meeting our tour guide at 9 a.m. Will for spontaneous decisions. I think I'll extend my trip by 2 days. If the weather is good, we'll hike to the waterfall. Accommodation types and booking. Hotel, traditional accommodation with daily cleaning service. Hostel, budget accommodation often with shared rooms. Bed and breakfast, B&B, small, family-run accommodation with breakfast included. Vacation rental, entire apartments or houses you can rent. Homestay, staying with a local family. Camping, staying in tents or cabins outdoors. Useful booking expressions. I'd like to make a reservation for... Do you have any rooms available from... What's included in the price? Is breakfast included? Can I cancel without a penalty? Let's practice a hotel booking conversation. Traveler. Hello, I'd like to make a reservation for next weekend. Hotel staff. Certainly. For how many nights and how many guests? Traveler. 2 nights for 2 people. Do you have any rooms with a view? Hotel staff. Yes, we have a room overlooking the city center. It's 120 euros per night. Traveler. That sounds perfect. Is breakfast included? Travel documents and preparation. Passport, your official international identification document. Visa, official permission to enter another country. Travel insurance, Coverage for medical emergencies or trip cancellations. Vaccination. Medical shots required for some destinations. Currency exchange. Changing money to the local currency. Advanced travel planning vocabulary. Off the beaten path. Visiting places that aren't typical tourist destinations. Cultural immersion. Deeply experiencing local culture and customs. Sustainable tourism. Traveling in a way that doesn't harm the environment or local communities. Digital nomad. Someone who works remotely while traveling. Gap year. Taking a year off to travel, often between studies or jobs. Common travel expressions. To catch a flight. To board your plane on time. To miss a connection. To arrive too late for your next flight. To be jet-lagged. To be tired from traveling across time zones. To go sightseeing. To visit tourist attractions. To get lost. To not know where you are. Can be positive or negative. Here's something interesting about English and travel. We often use phrasal verbs. Let me share some essential ones. Set off or out. To begin a journey. We set off early to avoid traffic. Stop over. To make a brief stop. We'll stop over in Dubai for 6 hours. Check in. To register at a hotel or airport. Hotel check-in is at 3 p.m. Check out. To leave and pay. We need to check out by 11 a.m. Look around. To explore. Let's look around the old town this afternoon. Grammar point. Present perfect for travel experience. We often use present perfect when discussing travel experiences. I have been to 15 countries. Life experience. She has never seen the Northern Lights. Experience up to now. We have just arrived in Bangkok. Recent completion. Have you ever been to Africa? Experience question. Travel technology and modern trends. Travel app. Mobile applications for booking, navigation, or translation. GPS navigation. An electronic system for finding directions. Online check-in. Checking in for flights using the internet. Social media sharing. Posting photos and updates during travel. Travel blog. Writing about your experiences online. Let's practice some pronunciation of challenging travel words. Itinerary. I-tin-er-rary. Accommodation. Accommodation. Destination. Destination. Budget and money expressions. Shoestring budget. Very little money for travel. Splurge. To spend more money than usual on something special. Good value for money. Worth the price you pay. Rip off. Something that costs too much. Bargain. Something that costs less than expected. Cultural preparation. Culture shock. Feeling confused or uncomfortable in a new culture. Local customs. Traditional behaviors and practices of a place. Etiquette. Rules about polite behavior. Language barrier. Difficulty communicating due to different languages. Cultural sensitivity. Being respectful of different cultural practices. Planning is just the beginning of any great adventure. In our next segment, we'll explore the beautiful complexity of cultural differences and how to navigate them respectfully. One of the most enriching aspects of travel is experiencing different cultures. Today's world is beautifully diverse, and as travelers, we have the privilege of learning from these differences. Let's explore how to discuss culture respectfully and meaningfully in English. Understanding culture. Key vocabulary. Tradition. Customs passed down through generations. Heritage, cultural legacy from the past. Cuisine, characteristic style of cooking. Architecture, style of building design. Festival, celebration of cultural or religious importance. Ritual, ceremony with religious or cultural significance. Let me share a cultural experience that taught me something important. When I visited Japan for the first time, I was amazed by the attention to detail in everything, from the careful presentation of food to the precise bowing etiquette. What struck me most was how these weren't just rules, but expressions of respect and mindfulness that have been cultivated over centuries. Grammar focus, present perfect versus past simple for cultural experiences. Present perfect for experiences without specific time. I have experienced many different cultures. She has learned to appreciate spicy food. We have never seen anything like this before. Past simple for specific experiences. I visited a traditional temple last Tuesday. The festival lasted for 3 days. We tried the local cuisine on our first night. Describing cultural differences. Positive descriptive language. Fascinating, extremely interesting, intriguing, arousing curiosity. Vibrant, full of energy and life. Authentic, genuine and original. Diverse, showing variety. Rich, having depth and complexity. Respectful comparison language. In contrast to my culture, here, people. In contrast to what I'm used to. In contrast to what I'm used to, families here. What I found interesting was how people. I noticed that people tend to. It's important to avoid language that judges or stereotypes. Instead of saying strange or weird, we can say different from what I'm familiar with or new to me. Food culture vocabulary. Street food. Food sold by vendors on the street. Delicacy. Special food considered particularly good. Staple food. Basic food that forms the main part of people's diet. Exotic. Unusual and from a distant place. Vegetarian. Vegan. Not eating meat or any animal products. Dietary restrictions. Limitations on what someone can eat. Religious and social customs. Sacred, considered holy or having religious importance. Taboo, something that is forbidden or disapproved of. Gesture, movement of the hand or body to express meaning. Greeting, way of saying hello or acknowledging someone. Personal space, physical distance people prefer to keep. Eye contact, looking directly at someone's eyes. Language and communication. Mother tongue, first language learned as a child. Fluent, able to speak a language easily and accurately. Accent, way of pronouncing words that shows where you're from. Dialect, regional variety of a language. Body language, communication through movement and posture. Non-verbal communication, communicating without words. Here's a fascinating cultural insight. In some cultures, silence is valued and shows respect, while in others, constant conversation shows engagement. Neither is right or wrong, they're just different approaches to social interaction. Grammar point. Conditional sentences for cultural situations. Second conditional for hypothetical cultural situations. If I lived in this culture, I would probably adapt to eating with chopsticks. If you visited during Ramadan, you would experience the beautiful evening celebrations. Third conditional for past cultural experiences. If I had known about the dress code, I would have dressed more formally. If we had understood the custom, we wouldn't have made that mistake. Art and creative expression. Folk art. Traditional art made by ordinary people. Contemporary art. Art created in recent times. Craftsmanship. Skill in making things by hand. Performance. A live artistic presentation. Gallery. Place where art is displayed. Museum, institution that preserves cultural artifacts. Social structures and family, extended family, relatives beyond parents and children. Nuclear family, parents and their children. Generation gap, differences in opinions between age groups. Hierarchy, system of ranking people by importance. Community, group of people living in the same area. Hospitality, friendly treatment of guests. Cultural learning expressions. I had my eyes open to. I had my eyes open to different ways of thinking about time. It challenged my assumptions about. It challenged my assumptions about family relationships. I gained a new perspective on. I gained a new perspective on work-life balance. It made me reflect on. It made me reflect on my own cultural practices. Let's practice describing a cultural experience. I'll share mine, then you can think about yours. When I visited Morocco, I was initially surprised by the concept of Moroccan time, the relaxed approach to punctuality. However, I soon realized this wasn't about being careless, but about prioritizing relationships and flexibility over rigid schedules. This experience taught me that there are many valid ways of organizing society, and that my cultural norms aren't universal truths. Festivals and celebrations. Parade, costume, fireworks, music festival, religious holiday, harvest festival. Advanced cultural vocabulary, cultural exchange, sharing of cultural practices between groups, cross-cultural communication, interaction between people from different cultures, cultural sensitivity, awareness of cultural differences, integration, process of becoming part of a different culture, preservation, keeping cultural practices alive, globalization, worldwide cultural and economic integration, common cultural mistakes to avoid in language. Instead of, "That's so weird," say, "That's really different from what I'm used to." Instead of, "Why do they do that?" say, "I'm curious about the history behind this practice." Instead of, "In my country, we do it the right way," say, "In my culture, we approach this differently." Remember, cultural exploration through travel is about building bridges, not walls. The language we use should reflect curiosity, respect, and openness to learning. Useful phrases for cultural conversations. Could you help me understand? Could you help me understand the significance of this ceremony? I'm interested to learn about. I'm interested to learn about your family traditions. In my experience, festivals usually involve the whole community. What I appreciate about this culture is the emphasis on community. Pronunciation practice for cultural terms. Architecture. Cuisine. Heritage. Her-it-age. Cultural exploration through travel gives us stories that last a lifetime. In our next segment, we'll learn how to tell these stories in engaging and meaningful ways. Every traveler returns home with stories, some hilarious, some challenging, some life-changing. Learning to tell these stories well in English not only improves your language skills, but also helps you connect with people from around the world. Let's master the art of travel storytelling. Storytelling structure and vocabulary. Setting the scene. Background, the circumstances and context. Atmosphere, the feeling or mood of a place. Setting, where and when something happened. First impression, initial thoughts about something. Expectations, what you thought would happen. Narrative sequence words. Initially, at the beginning. Subsequently, after that. Meanwhile, at the same time. Eventually, in the end. Surprisingly, in an unexpected way. Fortunately, unfortunately, expressing luck or bad luck. Let me demonstrate effective storytelling with a personal experience. Initially, I was extremely nervous about traveling solo to Thailand. I had expectations based on what I'd read online, but the reality was surprisingly different. Eventually, what started as a challenging experience became the most transformative journey of my life. Grammar focus, past tenses for storytelling. Past simple for main events. I arrived in Bangkok at midnight. The taxi driver spoke no English. I found a small hotel near the market. Past continuous for background actions. While I was walking through the market, I noticed the incredible smells. People were bargaining loudly all around me. Past perfect for events before the main story. I had never eaten such spicy food before that trip. She had warned me about the monsoon season. Adventure and exploration vocabulary. Positive adventure experiences. Breathtaking, extremely beautiful or impressive. Unforgettable, impossible to forget. Exhilarating, very exciting and enjoyable. Eye-opening, causing you to understand something new. Life-changing, having a major impact on your life. Magical, wonderful in a mysterious way. Challenging experiences. Overwhelming, too much to handle easily. Nerve-wracking, making you very nervous. Exhausting, extremely tiring. Frustrating, annoying because things don't work as expected. Intimidating, frightening or discouraging. Demanding, requiring a lot of effort. Background, to figure out, to understand or solve something. Work around, to find a solution despite obstacles. Adapt to adjust to new conditions. Cope with, to deal with something difficult. Overcome, to succeed despite difficulties. Make the best of, to handle a bad situation positively. Here's a story that illustrates problem solving during travel. Last year, while I was backpacking through Vietnam, I experienced what I initially thought was a disaster. My train to Hanoi was canceled due to flooding, and I had already booked accommodation that I couldn't cancel. However, this problem led me to discover a beautiful mountain village where I ended up staying for 3 extra days. I learned that sometimes the best travel experiences come from unexpected detours. Describing people you meet. Positive character traits. Hospitable, welcoming to guests. Generous, willing to give or share. Wise, having deep knowledge and experience. Charismatic, having personal charm and appeal. Resilient, able to recover quickly from difficulties. Authentic, genuine and real. Cultural interactions. Local, someone who lives in the area you're visiting. Fellow traveler, another person who is traveling. Tour guide, person who shows tourists around. Stranger, someone you don't know. Acquaintance, someone you've met but don't know well. Companion, someone you travel with. Food and dining experiences. Aromatic, having a strong, pleasant smell. Flavorful, having a strong, distinctive taste. Authentic, traditional and genuine. Exotic, unusual and exciting. Bland, lacking taste or flavor. Acquired taste, something you learn to like over time. Accommodation experiences. Cozy, comfortable and warm. Spacious, having lots of room. Basic, simple with only essential features. Luxurious, very comfortable and expensive. Quirky, unusual in an interesting way. Remote, far from populated areas. Transportation adventures. Smooth journey, travel without problems. Bumpy ride, uncomfortable journey with lots of movement. Scenic route, path with beautiful views. Crowded, having too many people. Delayed, arriving later than scheduled. Connection, changing from one form of transport to another. Let's practice using descriptive language. Compare these two versions of the same experience. Basic version. I went to a market in India. It was big and had many people. Enhanced version. I wandered through a vibrant spice market in Jaipur, where the aromatic scents of cardamom and cinnamon filled the air. The narrow alleys were bustling with locals bargaining enthusiastically, creating an atmosphere that was both overwhelming and exhilarating. Grammar point. Using participles for dynamic descriptions. Present participles, ing, for ongoing actions. I spent the morning wandering through ancient streets, discovering hidden cafes. The children came running toward us, laughing and waving. Past participles, ed, for states and feelings. Exhausted from the long hike, we collapsed at the mountain peak. Amazed by the sunset, I sat in silence for an hour. Weather and natural environment. Torrential rain, very heavy rainfall. Sweltering heat, extremely hot weather. Gentle breeze, light, pleasant wind. Crystal clear skies, perfectly clear weather. Misty morning, morning with light fog. Golden sunset, beautiful evening light. Emotional responses to travel. Awestruck, filled with wonder. Homesick, missing home. Culture shocked, confused by cultural differences. Rejuvenated, feeling refreshed and energetic. Nostalgic, feeling sentimental about the past. Grateful, feeling thankful. Common storytelling expressions. What really struck me was how kind everyone was. I'll never forget the moment when I saw the northern lights. It dawned on me that I had been making assumptions. Looking back, I realize how much I learned. Advanced storytelling techniques. Using sensory details. The sound of temple bells echoing across the valley. The taste of fresh coconut water after a long, dusty walk. The feeling of soft sand between my toes at midnight. Creating suspense. Little did I know that this innocent wrong turn would lead to. What happened next changed everything. I had no idea I was about to meet. Here's a complete story example that uses many of the techniques we've discussed. 2 years ago, while I was exploring the remote highlands of Scotland, I experienced something truly unforgettable. I had been hiking for hours through misty mountains when, exhausted and slightly lost, I stumbled upon a tiny village that wasn't on any of my maps. Initially, I felt intimidated. Everyone was speaking Gaelic, and I was clearly an outsider. However, when the villagers realized I was lost, their hospitality was overwhelming. An elderly woman named Margaret invited me into her cottage, where she served me the most aromatic soup I'd ever tasted. What really struck me was how this unplanned detour became the highlight of my entire trip. Looking back, I realized that the best travel experiences often come not from our carefully planned itineraries, but from the moments when we're open to unexpected adventures. Useful phrases for ending stories. And that's how I learned the importance of staying flexible while traveling. The experience taught me to appreciate small acts of kindness. I came away with a completely new perspective on community. Great storytelling connects us with others and helps us process our own experiences. In our final segment, let's practice real conversations you'll have while traveling. Now let's put everything together with realistic travel conversations. These are the actual interactions you'll have while exploring the world, and mastering them will boost your confidence tremendously. Conversation 1. Meeting fellow travelers. Excuse me, are you also waiting for the bus to Petra? Yes, I am. I've been here for about 20 minutes. Have you been to Jordan before? No, this is my first time. I'm actually quite nervous about traveling alone here. I understand completely. I felt the same way when I first arrived. But honestly, the people have been incredibly welcoming. Where are you from? I'm from Canada. What about you? I'm from Australia. I've been backpacking through the Middle East for the past month. That sounds amazing. What's been your favorite place so far? Definitely the markets in Istanbul. The atmosphere was absolutely incredible. Key phrases for meeting people. Are you also? Friendly way to start conversations. Have you been to before? Showing interest in their experience. I understand completely. Expressing empathy. What's been your favorite? Asking for recommendations. Conversation 2. Asking for directions and local advice. Tourist. Excuse me, could you help me? I'm looking for the best way to get to the old town. Local, of course. You have a couple of options. You could take the metro, it's about 15 minutes, or walk through the park, which takes about 30 minutes but is much more scenic. The walk sounds lovely. Is it safe to walk there at this time of day? Absolutely. The park is well lit and there are always people around. Just follow the main path and you can't miss it. That's perfect. While I have you, could you recommend a good local restaurant nearby? Definitely, try Maria's Taverna. It's small and family-run, and they serve the most authentic food in the area. It's just 5 minutes from the park entrance. Thank you so much. You've been incredibly helpful. Essential phrases for getting help. Could you help me? Polite way to ask for assistance. You have a couple of options. Giving choices. While I have you, asking for additional help. You've been incredibly helpful. Conversation 3. Cultural exchange. Maria, I noticed you were taking photos of the traditional dancers. Are you enjoying the festival? It's absolutely fascinating. I've never seen anything like this before. Could you tell me more about the significance of the costumes? I'd be happy to. The colors represent different aspects of nature. Blue for water, green for the earth, red for fire. It's a tradition that goes back over 500 years. That's incredible. In my culture, we don't have festivals quite like this. How long does the celebration last? It continues for 3 days. Each day focuses on different themes. Tomorrow will be about harvest, and the final day celebrates community unity. I feel so fortunate to experience this. Is it appropriate for visitors to participate, or should we just observe? Visitors are absolutely welcome to join. In fact, around 8 o'clock, there will be traditional dancing that everyone can participate in. Phrases for cultural learning. Could you tell me more about? Showing genuine interest. In my culture, we. Respectful comparison. I feel so fortunate to. Expressing appreciation. Is it appropriate for? Showing cultural sensitivity. Conversation 4. Dealing with travel problems. Passenger. Excuse me, I think there might be a problem with my reservation. The system shows my flight is canceled. Airline staff. I'm sorry to hear that. Let me check your booking details. Yes, unfortunately, your flight has been canceled due to bad weather, but we can reschedule you on tomorrow's flight at no extra charge. I appreciate that, but I have accommodation booked for tonight that I can't cancel. Is there any possibility of getting on an earlier flight today? Let me see what's available. Actually, we have one seat on the 4 p.m. flight, but there would be a small upgrade fee of 50 euros. That would be perfect. I'll take it. This kind of flexibility really makes a difference when you're traveling. I'm glad we could work something out. Here's your new boarding pass, and thank you for your patience.
Hello, and welcome to the Artificial Fluency Podcast. I'm your host, Emma, and today we have a special hour-long episode all about mindfulness and how it can revolutionize your language learning journey. Whether you're a beginner or approaching fluency, the principles of mindfulness can help you overcome common obstacles, reduce anxiety, and develop a deeper connection with English. So get comfortable, take a deep breath, and let's begin this exploration together. Before we dive into the fascinating connection between mindfulness and language learning, let's first understand what mindfulness actually is. Many people have heard the term, but there's often confusion about what it really means. At its core, mindfulness is the practice of paying attention to the present moment with openness, curiosity, and without judgment. It's about being fully aware of where we are, what we're doing, and not being overly reactive to what's happening around us. Jon Kabat-Zinn, one of the pioneers who brought mindfulness to mainstream Western culture, defines it as paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. This simple but profound practice has roots in ancient meditation traditions but has been adapted for modern life and backed by extensive scientific research. So why are we talking about mindfulness on a language learning podcast? The connection might not seem obvious at first, but as we'll explore today, bringing mindfulness into your language practice can transform not just how you learn, but also how you experience the entire process. Let's start with some vocabulary related to mindfulness that you'll find useful both for today's episode and for discussing this topic in English. I'll explain each term and use it in a sentence. First, awareness. This means noticing what's happening inside and around you. Practicing language with awareness means noticing when you make errors without becoming discouraged. Present moment refers to what's happening right now, not in the past or future. When speaking English, try to stay in the present moment rather than worrying about what to say next. Non-judgmental means observing without labeling things as good or bad. Taking a non-judgmental approach to your accent helps reduce speaking anxiety. Attention is the focus of your conscious mind. Directing your attention to how native speakers use phrasal verbs can improve your understanding. Acceptance means acknowledging reality without resistance. Acceptance of the challenges in learning English is the first step toward overcoming them. Compassion is showing kindness toward suffering, including your own. Self-compassion is essential when you make mistakes in your language journey. Now that we have this vocabulary foundation, let's explore the specific ways mindfulness can enhance your language learning experience. One of the biggest challenges language learners face is something we rarely talk about, the emotional aspect of learning. Have you ever felt your heart racing when asked to speak English in front of others? Or that sinking feeling when you can't understand a native speaker? Or maybe the frustration of forgetting vocabulary you thought you knew? These emotional responses aren't just uncomfortable, they actively interfere with learning. When we experience stress or anxiety, our brain's fight or flight response activates. Blood flows away from our prefrontal cortex, the thinking, learning part of our brain, and towards systems needed for survival. This biological response made perfect sense when humans needed to escape predators, but it's not helpful when trying to conjugate verbs or remember vocabulary. This is where mindfulness comes in. Research has shown that regular mindfulness practice actually changes the brain in ways that help us manage emotions and stress. A 2011 study at Harvard found that just 8 weeks of mindfulness practice created measurable changes in the amygdala, the brain's alarm system for threat. Participants showed reduced activation in this area and reported feeling less stressed. For language learners, this means that mindfulness can help create the optimal emotional state for learning. When you're calm and centered, your prefrontal cortex remains engaged, allowing you to think clearly, recall information more easily, and process new language more effectively. Now, let's get practical. How can you actually incorporate mindfulness into your language learning routine? I'll share 5 powerful techniques that you can start using today. The first technique is mindful listening. This practice transforms how you engage with English audio material, whether it's podcasts like this one, songs, films, or conversations. Here's how to practice mindful listening. Choose a short audio clip, perhaps 2-3 minutes long. Before pressing play, take 3 deep breaths to center yourself. As you listen, give the audio your complete attention. Notice when your mind wanders and gently bring it back to the sounds. Don't worry about understanding everything. Just observe the sounds, rhythms, and patterns of the language. What makes this different from regular listening practice is the quality of attention. Rather than straining to understand every word or becoming frustrated when you don't, you're training your brain to stay present with the language, noticing details you might otherwise miss. Many students report that after practicing mindful listening regularly, they begin to naturally pick up on subtleties of pronunciation and intonation that they
Many students report that after practicing mindful listening regularly, they begin to naturally pick up on subtleties of pronunciation and intonation that they previously couldn't hear. Your brain becomes better at distinguishing sounds that don't exist in your native language. I recommend starting with just 5 minutes of mindful listening daily, gradually increasing as you become more comfortable with the practice. Let's try a brief mindful listening exercise right now. I'm going to play a short paragraph, and I invite you to listen with full attention. Don't worry about understanding every word. Just notice the sounds, rhythm, and your own experience of listening.
The art of mindfulness transforms ordinary experiences into extraordinary ones. When we pay attention to the small details, the feeling of a breeze on our skin, the complex flavors in a simple meal, the subtle changes in another person's expression, we discover a richness in life that was always there, waiting to be noticed. The same principle applies to language. When we bring mindful attention to our practice, the language reveals its patterns, its music, and its beauty. How was that experience? Did you notice your mind wandering at any point? Did you observe any physical sensations as you listened? This level of awareness is exactly what we're cultivating through mindful listening. The second technique is mindful speaking. Many language learners experience anxiety when speaking, which can lead to the frustrating experience of knowing what to say, but feeling blocked or tongue-tied. Mindful speaking begins with awareness of your physical body before you start talking. Notice your posture, any tension in your shoulders or jaw, and your breathing pattern. Take a moment to feel your feet on the ground, which creates a sense of stability and presence. As you speak, pay attention to the physical sensations of forming the words. Feel the movement of your tongue, lips, and jaw. Notice the vibration in your throat and chest. This sensory awareness keeps you anchored in the present moment, rather than caught in worries about how you sound. Another aspect of mindful speaking is observing any self-critical thoughts without getting caught up in them. When you notice thoughts like, my pronunciation is terrible, or they're judging my grammar, simply acknowledge them with, there's a judgmental thought, and gently return your attention to the physical experience of speaking. I recommend practicing mindful speaking first in low-pressure situations, perhaps recording yourself or speaking with a supportive language partner. As your comfort grows, you can bring this awareness into more challenging conversations. Many students report that mindful speaking not only reduces anxiety, but also improves their pronunciation as they become more aware of the physical aspects of producing sounds. Let's practice a brief mindful speaking exercise. I'll provide a simple prompt, and if you're in a place where you can speak aloud, I invite you to respond to it while practicing mindful speaking. If not, you can just imagine doing this exercise. The prompt is, describe your favorite place to relax. Before speaking, take 3 deep breaths, feel your feet on the ground, and notice any tension in your body, allowing it to release. As you speak, pay attention to the physical sensations of forming the words. Notice any judgmental thoughts that arise, acknowledging them without getting caught up in them. Focus on the experience of speaking rather than how good your English sounds. Even just 30 seconds of speaking with this kind of awareness can begin to shift your relationship with spoken English. Our third technique is mindful reading. Many language learners approach reading with the goal of finishing the text or understanding every word, which can create pressure and frustration. Mindful reading transforms this experience. Begin by choosing a text that's at an appropriate level for you, challenging enough to be interesting, but not so difficult that you need to look up every other word. Before you start reading, take a moment to center yourself with a few deep breaths. As you read, notice the tendency to rush or to get caught in trying to translate everything to your native language. When you find your mind racing ahead or struggling to grasp meaning, gently bring your attention back to the words on the page. Read at a pace that allows you to actually see each word. One particularly effective mindful reading technique is to read aloud slowly, feeling the shape of each word in your mouth. This engages multiple senses and creates a deeper connection with the language. Another approach is to read the same short passage several times, noticing new details with each reading. You might focus on different aspects. First, the general meaning, then specific vocabulary, then grammatical structures, and finally, the rhythm and flow of the language. Many students find that mindful reading leads to better comprehension and retention, as well as a more enjoyable experience with the language. Let's practice a brief mindful reading exercise. I'll share a short paragraph, and I invite you to read it slowly and mindfully, perhaps even aloud if you're in a place where you can do so. Learning a language is not just about mastering vocabulary and grammar. It's about entering a new world of expression, connecting with different ways of thinking, and expanding your own identity. Each new word you learn is not just information to memorize, but a tool that allows you to share more of yourself and understand more of others. The journey of language learning is as much about discovering yourself as it is about communicating with others. As you read, did you notice any tendency to rush? Were you able to stay present with each word? Did any particular phrases stand out to you? This awareness is what makes mindful reading such a powerful practice. The fourth technique we'll explore is mindful vocabulary practice. Traditional vocabulary methods often focus on quantity, how many words you can memorize. Mindful vocabulary practice emphasizes quality of attention and creating meaningful connections with fewer words. Instead of trying to memorize long lists, choose 5 to 7 new words that are relevant to your life and interests. For each word, take time to explore it fully. Say it aloud, feeling the shape of it in your mouth. Write it down slowly, noticing the movement of your hand. Create a personal example sentence that has emotional significance for you. You might also engage your imagination. Visualize a scene that represents the word, create a mental story featuring the word, or connect it with a physical gesture. These multi-sensory associations create stronger neural pathways for remembering the word. Another mindful approach is to notice related words and how they connect to concepts you already know. How does this new vocabulary fit into your existing knowledge network? This creates what learning scientists call elaborative encoding, which significantly improves retention. Many learners report that by studying fewer words with greater attention, they actually remember more and can use the vocabulary more naturally in conversation. Let's try a brief mindful vocabulary exercise with the word serene, S-E-R-E-N-E. Which means calm, peaceful, and untroubled. First, say the word aloud slowly, serene. Notice how your mouth forms the sounds. Now, close your eyes if it's comfortable and create a mental image that represents serenity for you. It might be a quiet lake at sunrise, a peaceful garden, or any setting that embodies calmness for you. Next, connect the word to a personal experience. When have you felt serene? What were the physical sensations, emotions, and circumstances of that experience? Finally, create a meaningful sentence with the word. After practicing mindfulness for 10 minutes, I felt completely serene and ready to practice my English. This deep, multi-sensory engagement with a single word creates much stronger memory traces than quickly reviewing dozens of words. The fifth technique is mindful grammar practice. Grammar can be one of the most frustrating aspects of language learning, often leading to overthinking and anxiety when speaking. Traditional grammar study focuses on memorizing rules and doing mechanical exercises. Mindful grammar practice takes a different approach, emphasizing awareness and pattern recognition over memorization. Begin by choosing one grammatical structure to focus on, like the present perfect tense. Rather than starting with rules, expose yourself to many examples of this structure in authentic context, perhaps by reading a short story or listening to a dialogue where it appears frequently. As you encounter the structure, notice how it's used and what meaning it conveys. When does the speaker choose this form instead of another? What feeling or perspective does it express? This curious observation is very different from trying to apply memorized rules. Once you've developed this intuitive feeling for the structure, then look at the formal rule. You'll likely find that it makes much more sense because you've already begun to develop a feel for the pattern. When practicing, bring full attention to forming the structure correctly, noticing any resistance or confusion that arises. Rather than judging these difficulties, simply observe them with curiosity, like, oh, I notice I'm struggling with the word order here, or I see I automatically used simple past instead of present perfect. This mindful approach can transform grammar from a source of anxiety to an interesting exploration of how the language works. Let's practice mindful grammar with the short exercise focusing on the present perfect tense. I'll provide several examples of the structure in context. As you read or listen to them, pay attention to the feeling or meaning that this tense conveys, rather than trying to recall formal rules. I've lived in Paris for 3 years. She's never tried sushi before. They've just arrived at the airport. We've been studying English since January. He's already finished the assignment. What patterns do you notice? What kind of situations call for this tense? You might observe that it connects past events to the present moment in some way. This intuitive understanding, developed through mindful observation, provides a much stronger foundation than memorizing rules alone. Now that we've explored 5 specific mindfulness techniques for language learning, let's take a step back and look at how to integrate mindfulness more broadly into your learning routine. One powerful approach is to begin each study session with a brief mindfulness practice. Just 2 to 3 minutes of focused breathing creates a transition from your busy day to your learning time, helping your brain shift into a more receptive state. Here's a simple routine you might try. Sit comfortably and bring your attention to your breathing for about 10 breaths. Then, set a clear, positive intention for your study session, such as, I'm going to explore these new words with curiosity, or I will practice speaking with awareness and patience. This creates a purposeful, centered approach to your practice. Throughout your study time, build in short, mindful pauses. After completing an exercise or reading a passage, take 30 seconds to breathe and check in with yourself. Notice if you're becoming tense, frustrated, or distracted, and gently reset your attention before continuing. End your session with a brief reflection, acknowledging what you accomplished without judgment. This mindful bookending of your study time establishes a healthy relationship with the learning process. Let's practice a brief mindfulness exercise that you can use before studying. I'll guide you through it, and if you're in a place where you can close your eyes and participate, I invite you to do so. If not, just listen to the instructions and try it later. Begin by sitting comfortably, feet flat on the floor if possible. Allow your spine to be upright but not rigid. Take 3 deep breaths, exhaling fully each time. Now, allow your breathing to find its natural rhythm and bring your attention to the physical sensation of the breath entering and leaving your body. You might notice the feeling of air at your nostrils, the rising and falling of your chest, or the expansion and contraction of your abdomen. When you notice your mind wandering to thoughts, plans, or worries, gently bring your attention back to the breath. There's no need to criticize yourself when your mind wanders. This is what minds naturally do. Continue following your breath for a few moments. Now, set an intention for your English practice today. It might be to approach challenges with patience, to notice new aspects of the language, or simply to be present with the learning process. Slowly bring your awareness back to the room, perhaps wiggling your fingers and toes, and when you're ready, open your eyes if they were closed. This simple practice, taking just 2 to 3 minutes, can significantly change the quality of your study time. Now that we've explored 5 specific mindfulness techniques for language learning, let's take a step back and look at how to integrate mindfulness more broadly into your learning routine. One powerful approach is to begin each study session with a brief mindfulness practice. Just 2 to 3 minutes of focused breathing creates a transition from your busy day to your learning time, helping your brain shift into a more receptive state. Here's a simple routine you might try. Sit comfortably and bring your attention to your breathing for about 10 breaths. Then set a clear, positive intention for your study session, such as, I'm going to explore these new words with curiosity, or I will practice speaking with awareness and patience. This creates a purposeful, centered approach to your practice. Throughout your study time, build in short, mindful pauses. After completing an exercise or reading a passage, take 30 seconds to breathe and check in with yourself. Notice if you're becoming tense, frustrated, or distracted, and gently reset your attention before continuing.
In the first half of our episode, we've covered the foundations of mindfulness for language learning and explored 5 specific techniques. Now, let's dive deeper into some of the challenges language learners face and how mindfulness can help address them. One of the most common obstacles is the inner critic, that judgmental voice in your head that comments on your performance, compares you to others, and often focuses on what you're doing wrong rather than right. Have you noticed this voice when you speak English? What kinds of things does it say? The inner critic typically makes statements like, "My accent sounds ridiculous. I should be more fluent by now. Everyone else in the class is better than me. I keep making the same mistakes over and over. Native speakers must think I'm unintelligent when I speak." These thoughts aren't just unpleasant, they actively interfere with learning by creating anxiety and self-consciousness that make it harder to take risks and practice freely. Mindfulness offers a powerful approach to working with the inner critic. The first step is simply becoming aware of these thoughts as they arise. With practice, you can learn to recognize critical thoughts as just thoughts, not facts or reality. The traditional mindfulness instruction is to notice the thought, label it, there's self-criticism, and then gently return your attention to whatever you were doing, whether speaking, listening, reading, or writing in English. Over time, this practice creates space between you and your thoughts. Rather than being completely identified with the inner critic, you develop the ability to observe it with some distance. You might even bring some curiosity or compassion to these thoughts. "That's interesting. My mind is being really hard on me right now. I wonder what's behind that." Let's practice working with the inner critic through a brief exercise. Think of a recent situation where you felt self-critical about your English. Perhaps you made a mistake while speaking, couldn't understand something, or compared yourself negatively to others. First, notice the specific thoughts that arose in that situation. What exactly did your inner critic say? Now see if you can identify the emotions that accompanied these thoughts. Did you feel embarrassment, shame, frustration, or something else? Next, try rephrasing the critical thought with more kindness and perspective. For example, "I'm terrible at pronunciation" might become, "Pronunciation is challenging for many learners, and I'm still developing this skill." This isn't about positive thinking or denying difficulties. It's about relating to your experience with greater awareness and compassion, which creates a healthier learning environment. Another major challenge for language learners is the phenomenon known as the plateau, that frustrating period where, despite continued effort, you don't seem to be making progress. Many language learners experience this at the intermediate stage, which is sometimes called the intermediate plateau.
The plateau often triggers a cycle of demotivation. You don't see progress, so you become discouraged, which leads to less effective practice, which results in even less progress. Adding to the challenge, your awareness of the language has increased, so you're more conscious of your mistakes and limitations than you were as a beginner. Mindfulness offers several ways to navigate the plateau more skillfully. First, it helps you recognize that progress isn't always linear or immediately visible. By practicing present moment awareness, you can engage fully with your current learning experience without constantly evaluating whether you're getting better. Second, mindfulness cultivates equanimity, the ability to stay balanced in the face of both pleasant and unpleasant experiences, which helps you continue practicing consistently even when you don't feel the immediate reward of noticeable improvement. Third, the practice of non-judgment allows you to observe your current abilities without labeling them as good enough or not good enough. This creates a more objective view of where you actually are in your learning journey. Many students find that the plateau isn't actually a complete lack of progress, but rather a shift in how progress happens, becoming less obvious, but often deeper and more integrated. Mindfulness helps you appreciate these subtle changes that might otherwise go unnoticed. Here's a practice for working with the plateau experience. Take a sheet of paper and draw a line down the middle. On the left side, list the aspects of English that feel challenging or stagnant right now. On the right side, note any small signs of progress or growth you've experienced in the past month, no matter how subtle. These might include understanding a few more words in a film without subtitles, feeling slightly more comfortable with a particular grammar structure, noticing patterns in the language that you didn't before, having slightly longer conversations before feeling tired, learning a few new expressions that you've successfully used. The key is to train your awareness to notice these small shifts, which are often obscured when we focus only on dramatic improvements. This balanced perspective keeps motivation alive during plateau periods. A third challenge many language learners face is something we might call compartmentalization, the tendency to separate language learning from the rest of life, treating it as just another subject to study rather than a living skill to integrate into your identity. This compartmentalization often leads to a disconnect between classroom learning and real-world use. You might perform well on exercises or tests, but freeze up in authentic conversations. Or you might find yourself translating in your head rather than thinking directly in English. Mindfulness practices can help bridge this gap by training you to bring awareness of the language into everyday life. Here are a few approaches that students have found particularly effective. First, practice language mindfulness during routine activities. Choose an everyday task like cooking, walking, or commuting, and narrate what you're doing or seeing in English, either out loud or mentally. This helps integrate the language into your normal experience rather than keeping it confined to study time. Second, create mindful triggers throughout your day. Specific cues that remind you to switch into English. For example, you might decide that every time you open a door, wait for an elevator, or wash your hands, you'll think in English for the next 30 seconds. These brief but frequent moments of language immersion add up significantly over time. Third, practice mindful language shifting, the transition between your native language and English. Notice what happens in